Okay, hello everyone, and welcome back to Common English Mistakes. Don't just learn, improve. So today we're going to look at a couple of mistakes which I heard a nice French Canadian guy make when talking to me on this mountain here in the USA, using dimension words like high, deep, etc., and their associated word families, adjective, noun, and verb. These can be quite tricky because there are a few irregularities. We'll look at the patterns of the noun suffixes, so they're easier to remember. They also cause some pronunciation issues. I'll talk to you about how you can make these easier. And finally, the verbs can be a bit tricky, but if you think about them, you should be able to know how to make these verbs. So anyway, his mistake was up here. When we were on top of the mountain, he told me the problem wasn't the high, it was the steep. So just pause the video, see if you can correct his sentence. And well done. If you said here, we need to use nouns. The problem wasn't the height of the mountain, it was the steepness. So mountains are high and the noun is height. The height of Mount Everest is 8,849 meters. But remember, we also use this with the adjective tall. He looks very tall. What do you think his height is? And we can also use this in a figurative sense to say the highest or maximum of something. For example, she was at the height of her fame or height of her popularity 10 years ago. This was when she was most famous or popular. Another noun, which just has a T at the end, is weight. Probably most useful to use either in the phrase put on or lose weight, become fatter or thinner. Most people, myself included, put on weight at Christmas and try to lose that weight after, or talking about individual heavy objects. I lift weights at the gym. So those are the only two which end in T. Just be careful with the pronunciation because students often confuse them. Height, as you would saying hello, and wait, exactly like the verb to wait. The next group are the ones which end in th. For example, long, length. This can cause a bit of problems with pronunciation. I would really say the sound at the end is a k. Th. Practice that a bit slowly and then get it quicker. Th. Length. You can talk about the literal length of something. The length of the Amazon is 6,400 kilometers. But remember, we also use it to talk about time. The length of the lessons I teach are 50 minutes and 75 minutes. And if you talk about the length of something, start to finish, you then also talk about the width of something from side to side. So for example, in my city, the streets in the old parts of town are very narrow, only about 4 meters in width. Or maybe it might be useful when you're talking about swimming, you can either swim lengths or widths. Widths are obviously a bit easier and shorter. And then from the adjective strong, it's the same pronunciation as length, strength. Either you can talk about physical strength, I used all my strength to lift the box, or you can talk about a quality. Her ability to work under pressure is her biggest strength, her best quality. And then with the adjective deep, usually to talk about water, from the surface to the bottom, we have depth. You'll see a sign at the swimming pool saying the depth of the water. You can also use it in the phrase out of your depth, when you can't touch the bottom. For example, a wave took me out of my depth in the sea. This is also a very useful phrase to use figuratively. when you don't feel comfortable in a situation because you don't have the skills, experience, etc. required. So, for example, the class was very difficult and I felt out of my depth. And the last th noun you're going to need to know is breadth. The adjective broad basically means the same as wide, but it has some quite specific uses. In the literal sense, the only context I would ever use it is talking about shoulders. For example, he has very broad shoulders. Mostly, we use this more figuratively and talking about what goes on in your mind. So, for example, you can talk about a broad knowledge. And again, with the noun, you can talk about a good breadth of knowledge and then also breadth of experience. So that's the th nouns. Although there are a few exceptions, the others just use the suffix ness. So, for example, that original guy, the problem with the mountain wasn't how high it was, the height, it was that it was very steep, went up sharply, and the problem was the steepness. And then it's the same for weak. You have a weakness. A lot of people say their weakness in English is pronunciation. Personally, I don't think this is a big weakness. If you can be understood, that's fine. And it's the same for tight and loose. You can say these jeans feel tight, these jeans feel loose. When you use the nouns, I think it would be useful to use it to refer to your body. For example, I've been doing a lot of yoga and I love the looseness it gives me in my muscles. Whereas if you feel tightness in your chest, call an ambulance because it could be a heart attack. We talked about the length of something. The noun of short has a kind of different meaning. You can either talk about a shortage, not enough. So, for example, in Lisbon, there is a shortage of cheap housing. Or you talk about in summer, there are often water shortages, not enough water. There is the noun shortness, but again, the only context I can really think of is shortness of breath, when you can't get enough oxygen in your body. I experience shortness of breath up in the Himalayas. And then it's the same for bright and dark. We change the brightness of our phone screens at different times during the day, and darkness talking about when there is no light. For example, there was a power cut and the city was in total darkness. However, if you're talking about you personally not being able to see because it's dark, generally you're going to say the dark. Either as part of the sort of fixed phrase, be afraid of the dark, I was afraid of the dark when I was a child, or maybe talking about getting used to the dark. So it was pitch black, but after a while our eyes got used to the dark. We could see a little bit. So over here we have the adjective noun pairs for each dimension word. Maybe just pause the video, take a moment to study, test yourself. When you're ready, we will look at the verbs. So most of the verbs have the same suffix, which we're going to look at in a moment. First though, we'll just look at the two which are different. First up, we have to weigh. So for example, I weigh myself once a week. Or maybe in the kitchen, I weighed the ingredients before I made the cake. Just be careful here. A mistake I hear a lot is the T at the end of it. Weight, the noun, weigh, the verb. The other exception is to lower. Either you can use this literally. So for example, in the game of Limbo, they lower the bar for each round. Or you can use it figuratively and say something like, I think they should lower the voting age. Make it so people who are younger can vote. So those are the two exceptions. Like I said, all the others have the same suffix, en or un. It's a little bit confusing though, because sometimes you add this to the noun, length, lengthen. Sometimes you add it to the adjective, short, shorten. We can lengthen or shorten this dress depending on your size. I've been studying this though with students recently, and what I've found is instinctively, generally, they know which is the correct one because it just sounds better. So up here, I've got two example sentences, each with the two possibilities for the verb. Just pause the video, say each sentence with each option, and hopefully one should sound bad, a bit silly, and the other better. That's going to be the correct answer. And well done if you said the excitement in the crowd heightened as it got closer to the start of the final. The verb heighten, generally I would use in the figurative tense, like here, to mean become more intense. And then again, well done if you said they are going to deepen the canal so that bigger ships can go through it. Again, this is literal, but you could use it in the figurative sense to talk about something like love. His love only deepened over the years. So I'll tell you the other verbs in a moment. Again, I think it might be more useful though, if you pause the video here, think what the two options for the verbs are, and see if you can hear which one sounds better. That's going to be the correct verb probably. So with wide, we say widen. Generally, rivers widen as they get nearer the sea. A city might widen roads so that more cars can pass. And then with broad, again, you're talking about knowledge or figurative personal things. So to broaden your knowledge, or this nice phrase, to broaden your horizons, increase the range of your activities, interests, etc. So for example, traveling is a great way to broaden your horizons. And then with strong and weak, you talk about strengthening and weakening. For example, the root vegetable ginger strengthens your immune system, whereas drinking alcohol weakens it. Nice and easy for tight and loose, tighten and loosen. For example, I tightened or loosened my belt. Again though, use this often to talk about your body. Our muscles generally tighten after we do sport. So doing some stretching can loosen them. And then it's the same for brighten, darken. I brighten or darken my phone screen at different times during the day. A couple of other contexts it might be useful though. You can talk about the weather brightening, becoming more sunny. You can talk about skin darkening. My skin darkens, goes a lot browner in summer. And quite a nice one with brighten, meaning to become happier. So for example, on a rainy day, a cup of tea brightens my mood, brightens my day. And then finally, again, if something becomes steeper, the verb is to steepen. So going back to that mountain in the USA, it was difficult because it steepened a lot towards the top. Anyway, explanation over. I think that's quite a lot of useful language there. It comes up a lot in the Cambridge First and Cambridge Advanced exams in use of English Part 3. But more generally, I find a lot of those words are useful, but when people need to use them, clearly, like that original example, they don't know them. If you agree, and this video has broadened your knowledge of English, do make sure to like, subscribe, share the video with anyone else you can think of who might also find it useful. It'd be much appreciated if you could help this channel grow. Anyway, when you're ready, let's practice and improve. Just pause the video and complete the questions here with the word in capitals in a different form, either the noun or verb. And well done. If you said, do you think they should lengthen or shorten school holidays? Were you afraid of the dark when you were a child? How can people broaden their horizons, increase the range of their interests, activities, knowledge, etc.? Then what's the best way for people to lose weight, become thinner? Does being apart strengthen or weaken a relationship, romantic relationship? Why might you feel out of your depth in a new job, not feel comfortable? And finally, if you go swimming, do you swim lengths or widths? So I'm going to change the format of these videos slightly. You've got those questions there. So choose one to answer, which either interests you or practices a new bit of language for you. Very important though, guys, do answer those questions. Just one question is fine in the comments. It helps you because you'll practice the new language, and it'll help me because it's better for the algorithm. Please, please, please do that. Would be much appreciated. Other than that, I hope it was useful for you. And once again, you've broadened your knowledge of English. And I'll see you for another video next week. Until next time, see ya.